They once walked across the desert as kings, prophets, and slaves in The Ten Commandments, 1956, a film that etched itself into cinematic history. But what became of these legendary actors after the glory faded? Did fame shield them from tragedy, or did hidden struggles consume their final days? Some are long gone, their stories lost in silence, others left behind haunting legacies that still echo today. Charlton Heston, the towering icon of epic cinema, became immortalized as Moses in The Ten Commandments, 1956. Born on October 4th, 1923, he was 33 years old when he stepped into the monumental role under Cecil B. DeMille's direction. His commanding presence, deep voice, and almost biblical gravitas made him the perfect choice to embody the prophet who parted the Red Sea. The film cemented his legacy, but it was only one of many milestones in his career. Before and after The Ten Commandments, Heston appeared in classics like Ben-Hur, 1959, which won him an Academy Award, El Cid, 1961, Planet of the Apes, 1968, and The Omega Man, 1971. He built a reputation as Hollywood's go-to leading man for historical and action epics. By the height of his career, his estimated net worth reached $40 million of fortune, earned through decades of film, television, and endorsements. Yet behind the grandeur lay turmoil. Heston's strong political stances, especially his later affiliation with the NRA, tarnished his once universal appeal and divided his audience. In his personal life, though, he married Lydia Clark in 1944 and stayed with her until her death in 2018. Their long union endured strains from the pressures of fame. They had 2 children, but Heston's relentless career left little room for a conventional family life. Tragedy struck in his later years. In 2002, he publicly revealed he was battling symptoms consistent with Alzheimer's disease, a cruel irony for a man whose career was built on commanding memory and speech. The once mighty figure who had embodied Moses leading his people to freedom found himself slipping into silence. He passed away on April 5, 2008 at the age of 84 from pneumonia, leaving behind a legacy of epic heroism shadowed by personal decline. His estate included valuable real estate in Beverly Hills and Malibu, symbols of his towering success, but also reminders of the life that slipped away into tragedy. Yul Brynner, forever remembered as the enigmatic Ramesses II in The Ten Commandments, 1956, brought unmatched charisma and authority to the role. Born on July 11, 1920 in Vladivostok, Russia, he was 36 years old when he stood opposite Charlton Heston's Moses, embodying the proud pharaoh who defied God's will. His bald head, piercing eyes, and theatrical intensity became his trademark, making him one of Hollywood's most distinctive figures. Brynner's career stretched beyond DeMille's biblical epic. He won acclaim and an Academy Award for The King and I, 1956, a role he performed on stage more than 4,600 times. He also starred in Anastasia, 1956, The Magnificent Seven, 1960, and Westworld, 1973, balancing stage and screen with magnetic presence. At the height of his career, his wealth was estimated at $10 to $15 million, supported by film contracts, Broadway triumphs, and international touring productions. Yet, Brynner's life was far from serene. His personal relationships were turbulent. He married 4 times and fathered 5 children, including both biological and adopted. His restless nature often led to fractured marriages and emotional upheaval. Behind the regal confidence lay a man who craved control but frequently lost it in matters of the heart. The greatest tragedy of his life was self-inflicted, a lifelong addiction to cigarettes. Despite his commanding image, Brynner could not escape the damage smoking caused. Diagnosed with lung cancer in 1983, he still performed until he physically could not, a defiant gesture of his theatrical spirit. On October 10, 1985, he died in New York City at 65 years old, only months after his final Broadway performance of The King and I. In his final message recorded before his death, he warned the world against smoking, a haunting legacy from a man who had played kings and pharaohs but fell victim to his own vice. His estate included New York properties and a French chateau, remnants of a life of grandeur overshadowed by the ultimate tragedy of mortality. Anne Baxter, who shone as the seductive and manipulative Nefertiti in The Ten Commandments, 1956, was already a seasoned actress when she took on the role at 33 years old, having been born on May 7, 1923 in Michigan City, Indiana. As Pharaoh's queen torn between passion for Moses and loyalty to Ramesses, she infused the biblical epic with fiery glamour and tragic jealousy, making her one of the film's most unforgettable presences. Her career stretched back to the 1940s when she earned an Academy Award for The Razor's Edge, 1946. She reached another peak with All About Eve, 1950, where she played the scheming Eve Harrington opposite Bette Davis, a performance that became a defining moment of her career. Other notable works included I Confess 1953 under Alfred Hitchcock, and numerous stage and television appearances. Her net worth at her peak was estimated around $4.5 million as a reflection of decades in Hollywood, Broadway, and television. Yet Baxter's personal life carried shadows. She married 3 times, divorcing twice, and faced heartbreak in her second marriage when her husband Randolph Galt survived a near-fatal accident that strained their relationship. They had 2 daughters, but the turbulence of her domestic life mirrored the on-screen dramas she so often portrayed. Despite her talent, Baxter struggled with Hollywood's tendency to typecast her, and she endured career lulls that left her frustrated after such an early burst of success. Tragedy struck suddenly in her later years. On December 12, 1985, while walking on Madison Avenue in New York City, she suffered a massive brain aneurysm. She never regained consciousness and died 2 days later at the age of 62. Her death shocked the entertainment world, cutting short a career that still held promise. At the time of her passing, Baxter left behind real estate in Connecticut and New York, as well as a lasting legacy as both an Academy Award-winning actress and the unforgettable Queen of Egypt, whose life, like her roles, was marked by brilliance shadowed with sorrow. Edward G. Robinson, legendary for his tough guy persona, played the scheming Dathan in The Ten Commandments, 1956. Born December 12, 1893 in Bucharest, Romania, he was 62 years old when he appeared in Cecil B. DeMille's biblical spectacle as Dathan, the corrupt overseer who betrays his people and sides with Pharaoh Robinson, brought menace and moral decay to the story, embodying one of the film's most despised villains. Long before The Ten Commandments, Robinson had cemented his place in Hollywood with his unforgettable performance in Little Caesar, 1931, where his portrayal of Rico became the template for the American gangster archetype. His career spanned over 100 films, including Double Indemnity, 1944, Key Largo, 1948, and Scarlet Street, 1945. Despite his success, Robinson endured severe personal and professional turmoil. At the height of the McCarthy era, he was blacklisted due to alleged communist ties, a devastating blow that damaged his reputation and forced him into lesser roles. Though later cleared, the stigma haunted him for years. Financial hardship also cast shadows over his life. Though he amassed a fortune estimated at $2 to $3 million, extravagant spending, multiple divorces, and legal battles drained much of his wealth. His first marriage to Gladys Lloyd ended in divorce after decades of turmoil, though he later remarried Jane Arden. He had 1 son, but strained family relationships added to his inner struggles. Robinson's final years were bittersweet. He continued acting, giving acclaimed performances in films like Soylent Green, 1973, but by then he was battling terminal bladder cancer. He died on January 26, 1973 at the age of 79. Only days after learning he would receive an honorary Academy Award for his lifetime contribution to cinema. At his death, he left behind a Beverly Hills estate and an extraordinary art collection worth millions, reflecting both his refined taste and his contradictions. A man who played gangsters and traitors, yet off-screen was a patron of the arts whose life blended triumph, scandal, and tragedy. Yvonne De Carlo, immortalized as the noble and graceful Sephora in Cecil B. DeMille's epic The Ten Commandments, 1956, was born on September 1st, 1922 in Vancouver, Canada. She was 34 years old when she portrayed the devoted wife of Moses, a role that forever associated her with biblical grandeur. Before this, De Carlo had already been a rising star in Hollywood, known for her exotic beauty and strong screen presence. She appeared in films such as Salome, where she danced, 1945, Crisscross, 1949, and Band of Angels, 1957, proving her versatility across genres. Yet her career, like her personal life, was marked by turbulence and painful setbacks. At the height of her fame, DeCarlo's net worth was estimated at several $1 million, though financial mismanagement and costly life choices often left her struggling. By today's standards, her estate might be valued at roughly $2 to $4 million. But her wealth fluctuated dramatically over time. She married stuntman Robert Drew Morgan in 1955, and the marriage produced 2 sons, Bruce and Michael. However, the union was fraught with difficulties, including Morgan's infidelity and a tragic accident on a film set that left him severely injured, pushing their family into financial and emotional hardship. Eventually, the marriage ended in divorce, leaving DeCarlo to rebuild her life. Her later years were bittersweet. Though she found renewed fame as Lily Munster in the 1960s television series The Munsters, this success was shadowed by the decline of her film career and personal loneliness. She never remarried after her divorce, and though her children were a source of pride, her life was often touched by sadness, including the untimely death of her son, Bruce. DeCarlo owned several properties during her peak, including a lavish home in Beverly Hills, but in later years, she downsized as her fortunes diminished. Yvonne DeCarlo died on January 8, 2007 in Woodland Hills, California, from heart failure at the age of 84. Her passing marked the end of a life that combined cinematic triumphs with personal tragedy. She remains remembered not only as a symbol of exotic Hollywood beauty, but also as a woman who endured biographical struggles and personal heartbreak forever, etched in the memory of audiences who still see her as Moses' steadfast wife on the silver screen. John Derek, remembered in the Ten Commandments 1956 as the ambitious young Joshua, was born on August 12, 1926 in Hollywood, California. He was 29 years old when he stepped into this role, playing the Hebrew who would one day lead his people after Moses. Handsome and charismatic Derek quickly became a Hollywood heartthrob, with earlier appearances in films such as Knock on Any Door, 1949, alongside Humphrey Bogart in All the King's Men, 1949. His smoldering looks made him a natural leading man, but his career was often overshadowed by his turbulent personal life. Though Derek's acting career showed promise, it gradually stalled, and he reinvented himself as a director. However, his directorial work, particularly films he made with his fourth wife, Bo. Derek, such as Tarzan the Ape Man, 1981, and Bolero, 1984, were critically panned and are often remembered as failures rather than triumphs. What could have been a legacy of Hollywood success turned instead into a tale of wasted potential, cementing Derek's reputation as an actor-turned-director who could never fully live up to the promise of his early years. Financially, John Derek's net worth at its peak was estimated at a few $1 million, but he never achieved the kind of enduring wealth many of his contemporaries did. By modern standards, his estate is thought to have been valued at around $5 million at the time of his death. His personal life was even more scandalous than his career. He married 4 times to actresses Patty Bears, Ursula Andress, Linda Evans, and finally Bo Derek, who was 30 years younger. Each relationship carried controversy, with his divorce from Linda Evans, and his relationship with Bo Derek, whom he began seeing when she was just 16, generating public criticism and gossip that followed him throughout his life. Though he lived in comfort, often in luxurious California homes, his life was riddled with turbulence and criticism. Unlike many stars, Derek seemed to invite scandal, and his reputation as a controversial figure overshadowed his genuine talent. John Derek died on May 22, 1998 in Santa Maria, California, at the age of 71 from heart failure after surgery. His death closed the chapter on a life that mixed beauty and charisma with scandal and disappointment. To this day, he remains a figure both fascinating and tragic, an actor whose striking looks promised stardom, but whose choices in art and love often led to notoriety instead of glory. Sir Cedric Hardwicke, who gave a commanding performance as Pharaoh Sethi in the Ten Commandments 1956, was born on February 19, 1893 in Lye, Worcestershire, England. He was 63 years old when he took on the role embodying the aging but powerful ruler of Egypt, whose decisions shaped the destiny of Moses. Hardwicke was already a celebrated stage and screen actor, by then knighted in 1934 for his contributions to the arts. His rich, resonant voice and dignified presence made him one of the most respected actors of his generation. Throughout his career, Hardwicke appeared in films such as The Hunchback of Notre Dame, 1939, Suspicion, 1941, and Rope, 1948, earning a reputation as a versatile performer who could bring both authority and nuance to his characters. Yet, despite his achievements, his personal life was filled with challenges. His marriage to actress Helena Pickard ended in divorce, strained by his long absences and the pressures of fame. The couple had one son, actor Edward Hardwicke, who later became known for his role as Dr. Watson in Sherlock Holmes. Financially, Hardwicke enjoyed success, but not the kind of fortune associated with Hollywood superstars. Adjusted to modern terms, his net worth might have been around $1 to $2 million at its peak, a modest figure compared to his stature. He owned comfortable homes in both England and California, reflecting his dual career in theater and film. Still, the constant pressure of work and health issues cast shadows over his later years. One of the more tragic aspects of his life was his declining health. Hardwicke struggled with emphysema, brought on by years of heavy smoking, which gradually eroded his strength and limited his ability to perform. By the end of his life, the once commanding actor was a frail figure living quietly and away from the spotlight. Sir Cedric Hardwicke died on August 6, 1964 in New York City at the age of 71 from complications of emphysema. His death marked the loss of one of the finest British actors to bridge stage and screen, a man whose career was crowned with both honors and hardships. Today he is remembered not only for his role as the weary pharaoh Sethi, but also as a tragic figure whose brilliance was dimmed by illness and personal struggles. Nina Foch, remembered in the Ten Commandments 1956 as the elegant and calculating Bithaya, the Egyptian princess, who rescues and raises the infant. Moses was born on April 20th, 1924 in Leiden, Netherlands. She was 32 years old when she took on the role, bringing regal poise and complexity to a character torn between her loyalty to Pharaoh's household and her devotion to her adopted son. Her performance gave the biblical epic a layer of maternal grace and moral conflict that audiences still recall today. Before and after The Ten Commandments, Foch built an impressive career in Hollywood and beyond. She starred in An American in Paris 1951, Executive Suite 1954, which earned her an Academy Award nomination, and appeared in noir classics like My Name is Julia Ross, All in Mind, direct 1945. Later, she transitioned into teaching, becoming a highly respected acting coach at USC and the American Film Institute, guiding generations of performers and directors. Her personal life, however, often mirrored the drama of her screen roles. Foch married 3 times, all ending in divorce, and though she longed for stability, she never found lasting happiness in her relationships. She had one son, Dirk de Brito, who became an artist and educator, offering her a source of comfort and pride. Financially, Foch lived well, but never amassed the vast fortunes of Hollywood's elite. At the height of her career, her net worth may have reached an equivalent of $1 to $2 million today, bolstered later by her teaching career and modest real estate holdings in California. Foch's life was not without setbacks. Despite her talent, she often found herself typecast as aristocratic or icy women, which limited her opportunities. Her later years brought health struggles, yet she continued to work teaching until the very end, refusing to let personal or professional disappointments silence her. On December 5, 2008, Nina Foch died of complications from a blood disorder in Los Angeles at the age of 84. Her passing closed the chapter on a life marked by both triumph and quiet tragedy. She is remembered not only as Bithaya, the princess who defied Pharaoh, but also as a woman who overcame personal heartbreak to leave an enduring mark on Hollywood and the craft of acting itself. Martha Scott, who portrayed the devoted Jochebed, the mother of Moses in the Ten Commandments 1956, was born on September 22, 1912 in Jamesport, Missouri. She was 44 years old when she stepped into the role, giving a performance filled with maternal strength and heartbreaking tenderness. Her scenes, especially when she surrenders the infant Moses to the Nile in hopes of saving his life, remain among the most emotionally powerful moments of Cecil B. DeMille's epic. Before her biblical role, Scott had already made her mark in Hollywood. She earned an Academy Award nomination for Our Town 1940 and appeared in classics such as Cheers for Miss Bishop, 1941, The Desperate Hours 1955, and later in Ben-Hur 1959, where she again played Charlton Heston's mother. Her career spanned both stage and screen, with an acting style noted for quiet dignity and emotional authenticity. Yet Scott's life was not without struggles. Though she found steady work, she never became a major star in the glamorous Hollywood sense often cast as nurturing or tragic maternal figures. Financially, she fared decently, but never reached the vast wealth of some of her contemporaries. At her peak, her net worth might be estimated today around $1 to $2 million. Her first marriage to Carlton William Alsop ended in divorce, a painful chapter in her personal life. However, she later found happiness with her second husband, jazz pianist Mel Powell, with whom she had 3 children. Her personal challenges included balancing motherhood and career, and enduring the constant pressure of typecasting, which limited her opportunities for more dynamic roles. Nevertheless, she persisted with grace, and in later years, she turned to television, appearing in series like Dallas and Dynasty, showing her adaptability across generations. Martha Scott passed away on May 28, 2003 in Van Nuys, California, at the age of 90 from natural causes. Her long life and career were a blend of triumph and quiet tragedy. An actress who never quite achieved Hollywood superstardom, yet whose work carried depth and sincerity. Today she is remembered as the tender Yochebel, a symbol of maternal sacrifice and love, and as a woman who navigated both the glories and disappointments of a life in the spotlight. Judith Anderson, remembered as one of Hollywood's most commanding presences, took on the role of Memnet Nefertiti's nursemaid and confidante in The Ten Commandments, 1956. Born on February 10, 1897 in Adelaide, Australia, Anderson was 59 years old when she appeared in Cecil B. DeMille's biblical epic. Her character may have been secondary in screen time, but Memnet's role carried intensity and dramatic weight, perfectly suited to Anderson's celebrated mastery of severe, enigmatic figures. By the time of The Ten Commandments, Anderson was already a well-established actress. She had won acclaim on Broadway-conquered Hollywood, with her chilling performance as Mrs. Danvers in Alfred Hitchcock's Rebecca 1940, and appeared in works such as Laura 1944 and Then There Were None 1945 and Cat on a Hot Tin Roof 1958. Her career, however, was not without frustrations. She was often typecast in stern, villainous roles, a pattern that limited the range of opportunities, despite her immense talent. Critics admired her artistry, but she sometimes expressed bitterness at being remembered mostly for characters of cruelty rather than her full dramatic depth. Financially, Anderson accumulated significant wealth from her decades in stage and screen work, with her net worth estimated around $1 to $2 million at the time of her death, equivalent to many millions today. She invested in real estate but lived more modestly than many Hollywood stars, preferring quiet residences rather than lavish estates. In her personal life, she experienced turbulence. She married twice, but both marriages ended in divorce and she had no children. These private disappointments, combined with the struggle of maintaining her career relevance in a youth-obsessed industry, gave her life an undercurrent of melancholy. In later years, Anderson embraced television roles, even venturing into science fiction as a Vulcan priestess in Star Trek III: The Search for Spock. 1984. She lived to the remarkable age of 93, passing away on January 3, 1992 in Santa Barbara, California, from pneumonia. At the time of her death, she was celebrated as one of the greatest character actresses of the 20th century, though her life carried shades of solitude and unrealized personal happiness. Her legacy remains one of brilliance marked by sacrifice, triumph shadowed by the quiet tragedies behind the curtain. Vincent Price, the unmistakable voice of horror and elegance, appeared in The Ten Commandments 1956 as Baca, the sadistic master builder of Pharaoh's treasure city. Born on May 27, 1911 in St. Louis, Missouri, Price was 45 years old when he stepped into the role. His portrayal of Baca was chilling, exuding arrogance and cruelty. a performance that perfectly foreshadowed the direction his career would later take as one of cinema's most iconic villains. Before this, biblical epic Price had already shown his versatility in films such as Laura, 1944, Leave Her to Heaven, 1945, and House of Wax, 1953. But it was his later horror roles in The Fly, 1958, House on Haunted Hill, 1959, The Pit and the Pendulum, 1961, and The Abominable Dr. Phibes, 1971, that crowned him the master of horror. Yet this status came with its burdens. While fans adored him, Price sometimes felt typecast, trapped in grotesque caricatures, when he longed to play broader, more nuanced characters. Off-screen, his personal life was complicated. He married 3 times, first to actress Edith Barrett, then to costume designer Mary Grant, and finally to actress Coral Brown. Each marriage was stormy in its own way, and he faced heartbreak with divorces before finding relative stability later in life. He had 2 children, but carried regrets about how his career often kept him distant from family life. Financially, Price was successful, earning millions through film's voice work and even his ventures into art collecting and culinary books. His net worth at death was estimated around $5 to $7 million, bolstered by real estate and art investments. Price's later years were marked by both triumph and decline. His rich theatrical voice kept him in demand for narration, most famously in Michael Jackson's Thriller. But he also faced personal pain caring for Coral Brown through her cancer battle before her death in 1991. Only 2 years later, on October 25, 1993, Vincent Price himself died from lung cancer and emphysema. At age 82, his health worsened by a lifelong smoking habit. Though his life carried sorrow, loss, and a career often boxed into horror, Vincent Price remains a cultural icon, his mixture of sophistication, menace, and dark charm, forever securing his place in cinematic history. John Carradine, the towering gaunt figure with a voice steeped in Shakespearean gravitas, appeared in The Ten Commandments, 1956, as Aaron, the brother of Moses. Born on February 5th, 1906 in New York City, he was 50 years old when he took on this pivotal role. His Aaron brought dignity and devotion, though it was overshadowed by the larger-than-life performances of Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner. Still, Carradine's presence carried weight, befitting a man who had already become one of Hollywood's most prolific character actors. Carradine's career was astonishing in scale. With appearances in more than 300 films, he worked with directors like John Ford in classics such as Stagecoach 1939 and The Grapes of Wrath 1940. He also became a familiar face in horror, starring in The House of Frankenstein 1944, House of Dracula 1945, and countless B-movies where his gaunt features and sonorous voice turned him into an eerie fixture. Yet his work was marked by financial struggles. Despite constant employment, he was often underpaid and accepted roles in low-budget productions to support his large family. His personal life mirrored the turbulence of his career. Carradine married 4 times, fathering 5 children, 3 of whom, David Keith and Robert Carradine, became actors themselves. But his marriages were marred by instability, separations, and disputes. Known for his eccentric personality and unpredictable behavior, he could be both brilliant and erratic. At times, he lived nearly penniless, moving between modest rentals and relying on friends. His bohemian lifestyle prevented him from building stable wealth. His net worth at death was only a few $100,000, a stark contrast to his fame. By the 1980s, age and ill health diminished him, though he continued acting even in frailty. His once commanding voice grew weak and his body betrayed him, but he refused to leave the screen. On November 27, 1988, John Carradine died in Milan, Italy, from natural causes at the age of 82. His death closed a life filled with triumph and tragedy, a man hailed as a stage-trained artist, yet remembered largely for horror roles and eccentricities. Carradine's legacy is both haunting and heroic, a Shakespearean soul trapped in Hollywood's machinery, a father whose sons carried on his craft, and a performer whose sheer volume of work ensured his memory endures, even if his life was marked by constant struggle. Olive Dearing, a graceful actress with a striking screen presence, portrayed Miriam, the devoted sister of Moses, in The Ten Commandments 1956. Born on October 11, 1918 in New York City, she was 38 years old when she took on the role. as Miriam Deering embodied loyalty and quiet strength, a character whose compassion contrasted with the grandeur and brutality around her. Though not a leading star of the film, her performance left an impression as the emotional heart of Moses' family ties. Deering's career stretched across stage, film, and television. She began in Broadway productions before entering Hollywood, with films like Destination Moon, 1950, and Cyrano de Bergerac, 1950. After the Ten Commandments, she continued working steadily in TV dramas and stage roles, but she never broke into the ranks of top-billed leading ladies. Much of her career was marked by playing supporting characters, which often frustrated her as she longed for greater recognition. In her personal life, Olive Deering was intensely private. She never married and had no children, choosing instead to focus on her craft. Friends described her as deeply committed to acting, but sometimes lonely, struggling with the isolating nature of Hollywood's competitive world. Unlike some contemporaries, she never amassed significant wealth, living modestly. At the height of her career, her net worth was modestly comfortable, estimated at a few $100,000, largely from stage and television work, without the security of major real estate investments or high-profile endorsements. Her life carried undertones of melancholy. Despite her talent and discipline, she faced the biographical curse of many actresses of her era, being overshadowed by bigger names and relegated to supporting roles. While she continued to work into the 1970s, by then, she had largely retreated from the spotlight, appearing occasionally in stage productions. Olive Deering died on March 10, 1986 in New York City from heart failure at the age of 67. She left behind no direct heirs, but her legacy remains bound to her poignant role as Miriam and her enduring devotion to acting. Her story is one of quiet artistry talent, shadowed by under-recognition, a career steady yet unfulfilled, a life lived in dedication to craft, but tinged with solitude and unrealized dreams. Douglas Dumbrille, the Canadian-born actor known for his commanding authority and villainous roles, appeared in The Ten Commandments 1956 as the elder Becca, one of the Hebrew leaders who witnessed Moses' rise and the plight of his people. Born on October 13, 1889 in Hamilton, Ontario, Dumbrille was 66 years old when he took part in Cecil B. DeMille's monumental epic. His dignified presence fit perfectly with the film's biblical grandeur, even if his role was not as prominent as the central stars. Dumbrille had built a long career before this role. He became one of Hollywood's most recognizable supporting actors in the 1930s and 1940s, frequently cast as suave but untrustworthy figures. He appeared in Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, 1936, A Day at the Races, 1937 alongside the Marx Brothers and Northwest Mounted Police, 1940, another DeMille production. Though consistently employed, he was often typecast as the villain, which, while giving him steady work, also limited the recognition his talent might have otherwise earned. His personal life carried its share of both stability and sorrow. Dumbrille married Jessie Lawson in 1919, and they remained together until her death in 1957, shortly after The Ten Commandments was released. The loss devastated him, marking a turning point in his later years. He remarried in 1960 to Patricia Mowbray, the widow of his close friend and fellow actor Alan Mowbray, a decision that sparked gossip in Hollywood, but gave him companionship in his final decades. He had 2 children from his first marriage and lived comfortably thanks to his career. At his peak, his net worth was estimated at around $1 million, substantial for the era, supported by both his acting and real estate investments in California. Though he never achieved the fame of leading men, Dumbrille's face was instantly familiar to audiences, his deep voice and piercing gaze making him a memorable presence. His later years were quieter, marked by semi-retirement and family life. Douglas Dumbrille died on April 2, 1974 in Woodland Hills, California, from a heart attack at the age of 84. His legacy endures as one of Hollywood's quintessential character actors, an artist whose career was steady, but tinged with the biographical irony of being forever cast as the villain, while in life he was remembered as a gentleman of warmth and wit. Which character from The Ten Commandments 1956 holds a special place in your heart? How does it make you feel, knowing that the beloved cast members are no longer with us? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share them in the comments below. If you've been enjoying this content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching.